Hi sir, good afternoon. My name is Rene Luel Siminiano Mesa, Bisat 2A, Group 7. So the title of my topic is Moral Virtues Theories, the Philosophers' Perspectives. Moral Theories, Utilitarianism, Kantianism, Virtue Theory, the Four Principle Approach, and Casuistry. What are the examples of moral virtue? We have honesty, courage, compassion, generosity, fidelity, integrity, fairness, self-control, and prudence. All these are examples of virtues. Moreover, a person who has developed virtues will be naturally disposed to act in the way that are consistent with moral principles. Virtue ethics is a broad term for theories that emphasize the role of character and virtue in moral philosophy rather than either doing one's duty or acting in order to bring about good consequences. A virtue ethics is likely to give you this kind of moral advice. Act as a virtuous person would act in your situation. These traits derive from natural internal tendencies, but need to be nurtured. However, once established, they will become stable. Utilitarianism, normative ethics. Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, English philosopher and economist. According to them, which an action or type of action is right if it tends to promote happiness or pleasure, and wrong if it tends to produce unhappiness or pain, not just for performer of the action, but also for everyone else affected by it. For utilitarianism, consequentialism, the action should be evaluated on this basis of their consequences. According to Socrates, virtue is knowledge because all living things aim for their perceived goods, and therefore, if any does not know what is good, he cannot do what is good, because he will always aim for a mistaken target. But if someone know what is good, then he will do what is good. Ayon kay Socrates, kapag ang isang tao alam kung ano ang tama, ang gagawin niya ay tama. Pero kapag ang isang tao naman, ang nasa isip niya, tama, yung mali pa rin ang gagawin niya. Kasi iyon yung alam niyang tama. Utilitarianism, it opposed egoism. So, ang ibig sabihin nun ay kontra siya, hindi siya pabor sa ganon. And each person should pursue his own or herself interest even at the expense of the others. Next, Kantianism. Kant moral philosophy is a deontological normative theory, which is to say, he rejects the utilitarian idea that the rightness of an action is a function how fruitful its outcome is. So, ang Kantianism, against naman ang idea nito sa utilitarianism. And he says that the motive or means, and not consequence or end, of an action determine its moral virtue. Four principles. The four prima facie principles are respected for autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice, a term introduced by an English philosopher W.D. Ross. That means principle is binding unless it's conflict with another moral principle. If it does, we have to choose between them. The four principle approach. Beauchamp and Childress. Beauchamp and Childress extremely influential in the field of medical ethics. To understand the approach of ethical assessment in a health care. Beauchamp and Childress, they define moral virtue as a character trait that is socially valuable and reliably present, and moral virtue such as traits that is also both dispositional and moral valuable. Last, casuistry is the use of moral belief and decision of right and wrong in order to reach or rationalize a solution. An example of casuistry is Buddhist, believing that something bad happening to him because the universe is balancing his karmic debt. What is the definition of casuistry? Resolving through interpretation of ethical principle or religious doctrine. Who philosophers use casuistry? Greek Roman philosophers, Christian preachers and teachers, Islamic jurists. And why they use casuistry? To solve real-life moral puzzle. Cicero is one of the philosophers who wrote case book on situation in which duties seems to conflict. Anyway, why do we need to understand or study philosophers' perspective? Because it helps us to solve problems, to make better decisions by developing our critical thinking.